The abduction to the ship did not go well for me. The feeling, like a memory flashed in my brain, grew to the limit. It seemed that now I would remember everything, but the feeling crumbled, spilled water between my fingers. I was about to grab it, and again failure. The abduction of aliens on a spaceship who died of unknown causes. The plague. It's possible to go crazy. And here I am, walking along the ship in a huge corridor, among the destroyed bas-reliefs on which the history of the creation of our planet, intelligent life on Earth, but also their civilization is depicted schematically, and where and in all colors. The alien civilizations that apparently had a hand in our creation. It was getting harder to breathe, my chest was burning. The pain was unbearable and sharp, then a dull feeling spread between my ribs from left to right and to my legs. Strangely, I no longer felt like eating or sleeping. I just walked forward, running my hand along the wall like an automaton, without a soul or my thoughts. Everything was replaced by the images that the ship itself sent to my brain when touching the wall of bas-reliefs. I didn't understand it right away, but later I realized that this was not a simple wall. It was the chronograph of the universe itself, the history of cosmic intelligence manifested in many civilizations. There were scenes of great triumph, mysterious rebirth, but also images of decadence and decline. Endless wars, famine, genocide, epidemics, all committed by different beings on different planets. It's amazing and unbelievable. The ship I was abducted to recorded everything with a digital mind and embodied it in bas-reliefs. I stopped being surprised, stopped being afraid or admired. Probably that's how the human psyche works, to get used to everything. And I started to get used to it. I knew that soon, one way or another, I would end up from exhaustion, starvation, perhaps because of radiation or God knows what. But even such a prospect did not seem scary to me. The ship was alive. I distinctly heard high-pitched, metal-filled voices in my head, as if the cosmos itself was talking to me.
We won't let you die.
But another voice was also breaking into my consciousness, muffled and quiet, like a distant echo of a familiar world. It was heard.
Explorer, go ahead. We are reading the information.
Incredibly, it was probably telepathic contact with forces unknown to me from my home planet. It gave hope, but at the same time, it awakened despair. No one was going to save me, no one would come to help. They needed me only as eyes, a living perception of what is on this cursed and blessed ship. The road was blocked by a huge monster's head, which grew right out of the smooth wall in a huge sculpture no less than 3-4 meters in height. The creature looked like a shark, but had 2 pairs of eyes and bristle brushes instead of teeth. I touched it with my hand. It could well be that such a creature was found on Earth during the age of extinction. At the touch, images began to flow into me. I became this rabid creature. I was running like a beast, like a frisky lightning at the bottom of leaden waters, but I felt pain. I was pierced by a ray. Consciousness threw me out of the whirlpool of images and immediately plunged into a new pool. A huge bird, or a flying creature with leathery wings all over its body, burst into the water with clawed paws and snatched out a shark, which was also me. From the shore of the greenish ocean, 2 worm-like organisms watched this scene. They stretched out to the top, then fell off, gathering in rings on a rocky spur cutting into the ocean. Sometimes they intertwined, stretched, tilted slightly, and then gathered like a telescopic tube separately. It was only now that I noticed that at the upper end of the worm-like bodies, where the head could conventionally be, these creatures have 2 short movable appendages. The appendages vaguely resembled crab claws, studded with many antennae, pimples, or warts. When moving relative to each other, the appendages made a crackling, rustling, and sometimes clicking sound. The creatures were thinking, so they communicated, taking care not only of each other, but also of the reality around them. One of the creatures grated.
Changing the forms of life on our planet is impossible and not relevant. Unfortunately, no one asked us about this. These birds will eat everything out, and we will have to go underground again.
The second creature did not react, but simply stretched out and then fell back in rings. But suddenly it straightened up like a string, became rigid, and fell backwards with a solid stick. It was a gesture of extreme discontent in their civilization. I looked at all this through the eyes of a shark, which was being carried away by a huge bird into the sky. My ribs hurt a lot and my heart burned. In my head, as if from the back of my head, the voice of the ship sounded in an insinuating whisper.
People of your order have never seen and will never see this. This is the very center of the universe. 2 billion years ago.
Over time, there was a strong feeling that this ship had access to some kind of global, all-dimensional network, not limited by anything. New fields, new ways of transmitting information directly by mental images into the mind of a reading being. That creature was me. I crouched down to catch my breath after crawling under the huge shark's head. I used to be able to walk for several hours as long as I needed to rest. I could barely walk now. It hurt to breathe. He recovered every 5 minutes, squatting first and then leaning back against the gigantic wall. It was getting harder and harder to get up. In fact, I no longer knew where I was going. Why? What was waiting for me ahead? Simple curiosity? Stubbornness? Everything ended unexpectedly. And I can't explain what exactly. 4.5 million years ago, amidst the primordial blackness of cosmic chaos, a huge, colossally huge creation station materialized from a cloud of light pierced by black petals and sparkling into space, the material part of what humanity will later call God. The station exceeded the size of the future solar system by many hundreds of times, namely the future system, since the station of creation is the ruler of galaxies, a fighter against the entropy of the cosmos. The beings who created it are beyond comprehension. I've seen photon discharges fly out in flashes the size of uranium from the place where the gas and dust cloud accumulates. The creation station was thickening the clouds, affecting them with gravity. Space was distorted and bent. The station itself was projected in various dimensions, being simultaneously in the visible and invisible spectrum of space. It's the most great thing I've ever seen in my life. Flashes of light and darkness hit my eyes, and the sun appeared from a suddenly manifested, opened black hole, dotted with electric yellow lightning as if yellow from an eggshell. It was no bigger than a football, but its radiance was blinding. The plasma was held by the most powerful gravitational fields. Gradually, the creation station began to dissolve in space, disappearing, passing from one spectrum to another, and the sun almost immediately increased in size. I was horrified and screamed. It hurt me. The ribs and under the ribs were burning with fire. I realized that I was dying. I could fly between the stars, take planets in my hands, and play with whole constellations like beads. I was the boundless space itself, and in this space my mind raced like a golden ray. I saw hundreds of thousands of inhabited planets. I saw beautiful and terrible creatures. I understood and felt life, not only in myself alone, but in all-encompassing forces. I ran across the endless ocean, not drowning in it, but rising above the waves. I ran to the edge and saw the radiance of the firstborn stars. It was then that I saw them, the first people of a planet unknown to me. I screamed, but the scream turned out to be a silent void, and then I heard a voice.
You were kidnapped by us in order to become a creator. We needed your soul, revealed in the knowledge of creation. It was we who led you from image to image and did not let you escape. But salvation was near. It was enough for you to express your desire to return to Earth, but you did not express it.
I didn't feel like it. I could see everything at once. I saw time, its thin and uncertain streams accelerating and pulsating. I saw how life was distributed through the corners of space, which seemed to me just a big apartment building. I died, but now I have become a creator. I am endowed with a power that scares me. And my friend, I heard again the voice that I had been mistaking for the voice of the ship all this time. But it turned out that this was not the case.
You are the creator. You are the soul. And I am the matrix of creation. I am the creator of everything that exists. And I need a soul.
I couldn't call myself a simple me. Now I wanted to think we, not someone tangible or known to me. I felt myself in everything, in every person, in a newborn baby's cry, in the crying of an abandoned woman or in the barking of a dog, in the subtlest, barely perceptible flight of a butterfly or in fluttering hummingbirds. I was life itself.
Do you want to know who was the soul before you?
I didn't answer anything. I just saw it. The creation station appeared again. A bluish sun crept out of its womb, and I realized that this was no longer the solar system I had known in human life. I saw the station, still the same, dimensionless, creative, but in the invisible spectrum a being manifested, which is a soul. Everything that I saw happened millions, hundreds of millions of years ago. The soul of the matrix of creation was a tall being woven as if from a multitude of solid greenish covers, a toad-like shape, a swollen torso, and it could think. Suddenly it hit me. It was as if I began to manifest myself again into something complete. I could not see the colors. Everything turned yellow-green. I looked at myself, at my chitinous integuments.
The soul exists outside the body. Souls existed even before the Big Bang, which gave rise to the cosmic abyss. This is the first thinking energy form, and we gave it a body, changing bodies for one soul in an endless stream of birth and deaths.
By commanding the matrix as part of its control, I caused the blue sun to roll out of the belly of the huge machine and manifest in its true size. I didn't know what I was doing or how, but I was doing everything right, as if I were shaping planets with my hands, sculpting them out of gas and clouds of dust, placing them in a habitable and beyond sector. I died and was born again, one of the people from planet Earth. I see you now, I'm watching, I'm getting ready and waiting. With you, Strange. This data was obtained from a classified server of the contact group of the Special Unit of the US Secret Service for near and far space exploration. The data is being updated, but it is already quite clear that the forces that we have learned about are beyond our control. For them, we are reasonable dust. If you think that this is not proof of the existence of aliens, then you are right. There is much more evidence, and on our channel we will reveal all the secrets and evidence of their presence. Subscribe to the channel and send me your stories related to aliens by email. You will find contacts in the About the Channel section. Together, we will force the authorities of all countries to disclose all the information they have. After all, people should know the truth.